The courtroom was packed. Not a single seat was empty. Reporters stood along the walls. Cameras waited like predators. Everyone was here to witness the fall of Daniel Crossa, young man accused of murdering a powerful real estate tycoon. At the center of it all sat Judge Harold Whitman, respected, untouchable, a man whose verdicts shaped lives. He adjusted his glasses and looked down at the defendant with cold authority. "Mr. Cross," the judge said, "you understand the charges against you." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." The prosecutor smirked. The defense lawyer looked nervous. The jury already seemed convinced. This case was supposed to be open and shut. But no one noticed the janitor mopping the floor near the back door. No one noticed how he paused. No one noticed how his hands trembled, because to them he was invisible. 12 years earlier, the janitor's name was Eli Turner. Once he had dreams. He studied law at night, worked 2 jobs during the day, believed justice was real, until one night destroyed everything. A night that involved Judge Harold Whitman, back in the courtroom. "Prosecution, call your next witness," Judge Whitman ordered. The prosecutor stood confidently. "The state calls the janitor." A ripple of confusion moved through the room. "A janitor," someone whispered. Eli froze. His mop slipped from his hand. Judge Whitman's eyes narrowed for just half a second. Barely noticeable. But Eli saw it. And in that moment, the judge recognized him. Eli walked to the stand. The courtroom watched in disbelief as Eli approached. His uniform was faded, his shoes worn, his face combut, his eyes burned. "State your name," the clerk said. "Eli Turner." The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Turner," Judge Whitman said carefully, "you are aware you're under oath." "Yes," Eli replied. "I've waited a long time for this." That sentence landed heavy. The judge shifted in his chair. "The prosecutor smiled, Mr. Turner." The prosecutor said, almost laughing, "You're employed here as cleaning staff." "Yes, and on the night of the murder, you were working late." "Yes, so you saw something." Eli looked at Daniel Cross. Then slowly, he turned his eyes toward the judge. "I saw something," Eli said. "But not what you think." The room went quiet. "The judge," interrupted Mr. Turner. Judge Whitman snapped, "Answer only what you're asked." Eli smiled faintly. "I am." That smile unsettled the judge. The secret begins to surface. "Tell the court what you saw," the prosecutor insisted. Eli took a breath. "I saw a man leave the victim's office at 11:47 p.m. Gasps filled the room, and the prosecutor pushed. "And that man was not Daniel Cross." Daniel's head shot up. The jury leaned forward. Judge Whitman's grip tightened on the gavel. "Order," he barked. Eli continued. "I recognized the man because I had seen him before," Eli said. "Years ago, where?" the prosecutor asked. Eli didn't answer immediately. He turned fully toward the judge. "Now, right here," Eli said. In this courthouse, a murmur spread like fire. Judge Whitman stood halfway from his seat. "That's enough," he said sharply. "This testimony is irrelevant." Eli's voice hardened. "No, Your Honor." Silence. "I saw you leave that office." The courtroom exploded. The judge slammed the gavel. "This court is adjourned," he shouted, but Eli wasn't finished. "I have proof," Eli said loudly. "And it's the same proof you tried to bury 12 years ago." Judge Whitman's face went pale. Daniel whispered, "What is he talking about?" Eli looked straight at the jury. "You're about to learn," he said, "why the most respected judge in this state made sure I never became a lawyer." The courtroom was chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Jurors whispered in shock. Daniel Cross stared at Eli like his life had just been handed back to him. Judge Harold Whitman stood frozen for the first time in his career. He didn't look like a judge. He looked like a man being hunted by his own past. "Remove the witness," the judge ordered to bailiffs. Stepped forward. Eli didn't resist. He simply spoke. "You can't erase this again, Your Honor." That word again, again. Judge Whitman's jaw tightened. "Mr. Turner," he said coldly, "you will be held in contempt if you continue this behavior." Eli smiled. "I've already lost everything once," he said. "Contempt doesn't scare me." The jury was watching the judge, now not Eli. And Judge Whitman knew it. The defense lawyer finally spoke. "Your Honor," the defense lawyer said cautiously, "the witness claims he has evidence that could exonerate my client." The judge hesitated. That pause said everything. "Proceed," he muttered. 12 years earlier, the night everything changed. Eli Turner was not always a janitor. He was a top law student, interning under a young, ambitious judge, Harold Whitman. Eli admired him, trusted him. That night, Eli stayed late in the courthouse to organize files. That's when he heard voices inside Judge Whitman's chambers, angry voices. One of them belonged to Marcus Hale, the same real estate tycoon, now dead. What Eli saw, the door was slightly open. Inside, Marcus Hale was yelling. "You promised me protection," Hale shouted. "I paid you." Whitman's voice was calm. "This deal ends tonight." Eli's heart raced. He stepped closer. Then, a gunshot. Marcus Hale collapsed. Eli stumbled backward, shock freezing his body. Judge Whitman stood there, gun in hand. Blood on the floor, and then their eyes met. Back to the present. "I saw the judge kill Marcus Hale," Eli said quietly. The courtroom went silent. No gasps this time. Just disbelief. Judge Whitman laughed. A sharp, desperate sound. "This is insanity," he said. "A convicted failure trying to save a murderer." Eli raised his head. "I was never convicted," he said. "You made sure of that." "How the judge destroyed him, I reported what I saw," Eli continued. "To internal affairs. To the bar, what happened next was worse than prison. My academic records disappeared," Eli said. "False drug charges appeared." The judge leaned back. "Objection," he said weakly. "Speculation." Eli reached into his jacket. "I kept copies." Judge Whitman's breath caught. The evidence no one knew about Eli handed documents to the bailiff. Emails, court orders, forged signatures, all traced back to Judge Harold Whitman. The prosecutor's face drained of color. This is serious," he whispered. Eli wasn't done. "There's more. The CCTV footage that night," Eli said. "I copied the hallway CCTV." Judge Whitman stood up. "You don't have it," he said loudly. "I destroyed it." Eli met his eyes. "You destroyed the original," Eli replied. "Not my backup." The courtroom erupted again. Daniel Cross began to cry. "The judge breaks character. You think they'll believe you," Whitman shouted. "A janitor over a judge." Eli's voice was steady. "They already are." The jury was staring at the judge in horror. Cliffhanger ending retention trigger. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor," he said slowly, "I am formally requesting your recusal from this case." Judge Whitman's gavel slipped from his hand. It hit the floor with a loud crack. Eli leaned into the microphone. "And once the video plays," he said, "this courtroom will finally see who the real criminal is." The courtroom felt different now. Not loud, not chaotic. Heavy. As if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Judge Harold Whitman was no longer behind the bench. Another judge had taken his place. Judge EleanorBrooks.com, but sharpened. Whitman sat where defendants usually sit. For the first time in 30 years. He was just a man. "Play the footage," Judge Brooks ordered. A technician connected a laptop to the courtroom screen. Eli stood quietly beside the witness stand. Daniel Cross clenched his fists. Whitman whispered, "This won't prove anything." No one responded. The screen flickered, then lit up. The CCTV video 12 years ago, the footage was grainy. A courthouse hallway, late night. Timestamp. 11:43 p.m. The jury leaned forward. At 11:46 p.m., a door opened. A man stepped out. tall, broad shoulders, judicial robes still on. Judge Harold Whitman. Gasps filled the room. Whitman stood up suddenly. "This proves nothing," he shouted. "I was working late." The video continued. At 11:47 p.m., Whitman stopped, looked down, wiped his hands on a handkerchief. The handkerchief was dark, stained blood. The courtroom froze. The prosecutor's voice shook. "That blood," the prosecutor said slowly, "matches the victim's DNA." Whitman collapsed back into his chair. Daniel covered his mouth. Tears streamed down his face. Eli spoke again. "I wasn't supposed to survive that night," Eli said quietly. "He threatened me." The screen changed. Another clip played. Inside Judge Whitman's chambers, audio crackled. "Then, you didn't see anything," Whitman's voice said on the recording. "If you speak, your life ends." The jurors stared in disbelief. Judge Brooks slammed the gavel. "Order." Whitman finally snapped. "You don't understand," Whitman yelled. "Marcus Hale ruined lives. I stopped him." Eli turned slowly. "You became him." Silence. The final nail, the defense lawyer, stood. "Your Honor," he said, voice firm, "this footage also proves my client, Daniel Cross, was not present." Judge Brooks nodded. "Daniel Cross is hereby cleared of all charges." The courtroom erupted. Daniel broke down, sobbing. His mother screamed his name. Eli closed his eyes. Justice real, justice finally existed. Whitman's last attempt. Whitman laughed weakly. "You think this ends me," he said. "I built this system." Judge Brooks leaned forward. "And now it will judge you." She turned to the guards. "Harold Whitman, you are under arrest for murder, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy." The handcuffs clicked shut. That sound echoed louder than the gavel ever had. The janitor's truth. As Whitman was led away, he turned to Eli. "You wasted your life," he sneered. "Look at you." Eli met his eyes calmly. "I cleaned floors," he said, "but I kept the truth spotless." Whitman had no reply. Cliffhanger ending retention trigger. Judge Brooks looked at Eli. "Mr. Turner," she said, "the court would like to know one thing." Eli nodded. "What's that?" She paused. "Why now?" Eli looked at Daniel. Then at the jury. Then at the courtroom that once destroyed him. Because Eli said, this time, the truth finally had witnesses. 3 months later, the same courthouse, the same walls, but a very different energy. This time, Harold Whitman wasn't wearing a robe. He wore an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, head lowered. The man who once decided everyone's fate was now waiting for his own. The courtroom was full again, but no cameras this time. No applause, only quiet judgment. Judge Eleanor Brooks presided. "Case number 84,721, she announced. "The People versus Harold Whitman." Whitman looked up for the first time. Fear showed on his face. Eli took the stand again. Eli Turner walked forward. No janitor uniform today. A simple suit, clean, sharp. Daniel Cross sat behind him, free at last. When Eli raised his hand to swear the oath, his voice didn't shake. He had already survived the worst. The defense's last strategy. Whitman's lawyer stood. "My client admits to being present," he said, "but claims the killing was an act of justice." A murmur spread. Judge Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Justice," she repeated. Eli's response, "Justice doesn't hide," Eli said calmly. "Justice doesn't destroy evidence." He turned toward Whitman. "And justice doesn't ruin an innocent man's life to save itself." Whitman clenched his jaw. Daniel speaks for the first time. Daniel Cross took the stand. "I was framed," he said. "They told me, if I confessed, my mother would be safe." Gasps. Judge Brooks leaned forward. "Who told you that?" Daniel swallowed. "Men connected to Judge Whitman." Whitman shut his eyes. The verdict, after hours of testimony. The jury returned. "We find the defendant," the foreman said, "guilty on all counts." Whitman's shoulders collapsed. The gavel struck once. "Harold Whitman," Judge Brooks said, You are sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. No cheers, no claps, only silence. Because real justice doesn't celebrate. Outside the courtroom, sunlight hit Eli's face. He hadn't felt it like this in years. Daniel hugged him. You saved my life, Daniel said. Eli shook his head. No, he replied. The truth did. One final twist. A reporter approached. Mr. Turner, she asked, what will you do now? Eli paused, then smiled. I'm finishing what I started. 6 months later, a courtroom again. But this time, Eli Turner stood at the podium as a licensed attorney. Judge Brooks watched proudly. The clerk announced, all rise. Eli smiled. For the first time, the system stood for him. Cliffhanger ending final retention. As Eli sat down, he noticed something. A young janitor watching him, invisible, ignored. Eli stood up again and called him forward. The courtroom was silent. Every eye followed Eli Turner as he stepped away from the podium. The young janitor stood frozen near the wall, mop in hand, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Me, he asked. Yes, Eli said gently. You. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Judge Brooks looked curious, but allowed it. The janitor walked forward. His name was Lucas Reed, 19 years old, working nights, studying law by day. Eli recognized the look immediately. The hunger, the hope, the same look he once had. Eli addressed the court, Your Honor, Eli said. I ask permission to make a brief statement. Judge Brooks nodded. Proceed. Eli turned to the jury. To everyone here, he began. Justice doesn't fail because of bad people alone. He paused. It fails when good people are invisible. The courtroom listened, really listened. A truth long ignored for years, Eli continued. I cleaned these floors while carrying evidence that could destroy a powerful man. He looked at Lucas. No one asked what I knew. No one asked what Lucas knew either. Judge Brooks spoke softly. What are you requesting, Mr. Turner? She asked. Eli took a breath. That this court never again forgets the ones it doesn't see. He reached into his pocket. A card. My firm offers scholarships, Eli said, for court staff who dream of becoming something more. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. Daniel's new life in the back row, Daniel Cross, watched quietly. Free, working with a legal aid group, now helping people who couldn't fight alone. When he met Eli's eyes, he nodded. A silent promise kept. The courtroom stood. Judge Brooks rose. So ordered, she said. This court will establish a witness access program for all staff. The gavel struck. This time, it sounded different, like hope. Late that evening, Eli walked through the empty courthouse. The floors shone, not because they were cleaned, but because they were respected. He stopped at a small plaque near the entrance. Justice is blind, but it must never be deaf. Eli smiled. Final moment, as he stepped outside, the night air felt light. For the first time in his life, he wasn't invisible. And somewhere behind him, a mop leaned quietly against the wall, waiting for the next truth to be heard.